Okay, everybody, can I have your attention? We're going to get on with the meat and the potatoes of the event here today with Congressman David Trone. But before we get started, I want to talk about some of the upcoming events that we're having, and so you can mark your calendars. The next meetings are scheduled for November 12th. The CEO Club meetings, November 12th and December 10th. We'll let you know whether they're going to be here, whether they're going to be downtown, or whether they're going to be inside, whether they're going to be outside. We're keeping our fingers crossed. Everything worked out great here. So we'll obviously let you know. Some people would ask me about the Presidential Advisory Council. That next meeting is November 18th. If you're interested in that group, please see me after the meeting, and we can talk about it. Our next international event is tentative. I've been invited to attend the meeting. It's the third week of January in Hainan, China. My wife said no way, so I don't think I'm going. The real reason. David's been there. You been there? Okay, man. I'm thinking about it. It is beautiful. It's like what it's like being in Hawaii, right? World headquarters is being built there. I mean, it's an unbelievable, beautiful 32-story building. But I don't think I'm going to be there for that event. I hope far, far away. Okay, everybody, get comfortable. They're going to bring out some cookies for you if you want to nibble on them as well. But let me tell you a little bit. About our guest here today. I get this paperwork to stand by. Congressman and businessman David Trone was elected to Congress back in 2018 to serve in the Maryland 6th Congressional District, which includes all or part of Montgomery, Frederick, Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington counties. He does a lot of traveling, for sure, across the state. He serves on the Education and Labor, Foreign Affairs, and Joint Economic Committees, where he's fighting to make progress on issues that matter to Marylanders, including the opioid epidemic, criminal justice reform, and funding for mental health research, which we know that's terribly needed. This is what I found that was really, really interesting about him. He grew up on a chicken farm and hog farm with his mother, a grade school teacher, and his father, a World War II veteran and member of the U.S. Army Reserves. Though the family lost the farm to bankruptcy, and we all know how devastating that can be, David was given an opportunity through education. And he has a BS degree from Furman University and an MBA from the Wharton School of Business. And he got that by taking out student loans. How many people here took out student loans to get through college? Have you paid off those loans yet? That's what it's all about. In graduate school, he met his wife, June, and opened his first store selling soda and beer. Through a lot of hard work and good fortune, we all need some good fortune and some good luck along the way, this single store grew into a business with more than 200 stores in 24 states and 7,000 employees nationwide, with 650 of those are based in Montgomery County. He lives there in Montgomery County with his wife, June, 4 children, and most importantly, 3 dogs. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. It's really a pleasure to have you.
It's good to be here, Doug. Thank you.
If we can, let's talk a little bit about your business right now and the pandemic, as well as your constituents. Tell us how the pandemic has affected, your business, your work in Congress, and so forth.
I think we should start, sound good in the back or not? Yeah, we should start really thinking about our constituents because, this pandemic, it's about people and what's happened to so many folks that are really suffering in so many ways. It's not just the count we see every night on CNN or Fox or whatever we watch. It's people who've just had their lives, in many cases, devastated. And some folks have been hurt even more, than others. And when you really start to dig in under the covers and see the folks that have been hurt the most, it's unfortunately those that are already hurting, those that are already more vulnerable. We talked earlier, Doug mentioned about addiction and opioids, and that's something I've been very focused on in Congress. My nephew, he was 24, he died of a fentanyl overdose in 2016. And we've all lost people to this scourge of opioids and drugs. Matter of fact, in the last 3 years now, it's over 200,000 people. It's the identical number that's lost from COVID. The COVID's now 209. It's about 210 in the last 3 years together. But guess what? For COVID, we're going to find a vaccine. We're absolutely going to get a vaccine. And for addiction, there's no vaccine. Last year, we set a record. 71,000 people died in 2019 of overdoses. The numbers this year with COVID are over 50% up in all of Western Maryland, which is the heart of it in my district. 50% up year to date, on top of a record death toll. Think about it, the isolationism that people go through now. The drug trade has been stopped on the southwest border as we shut it down. So people are using different drugs from different people who they don't know what's in those drugs. And the death toll is just mounting. So that's something we're very focused on in Congress. And this new bill, the HEROES bill, I'm on a caucus call at 2 o'clock today with the speaker and the team. And, you know, hopefully there'll be something to announce that we can move this HEROES bill forward because, you know, we've got to get money to Larry Hogan. We've got to get money to county executives, your mayors. And if we don't, the suffering just going to continue and continue. Second area that I know is important for everybody on the stage here is mental health. And COVID has just wrecked that area. We already had an emergency in this country because of the stigma of mental health. But with COVID, think about it a minute. We're isolated at home. We're working remotely. Our kids are with us at home. They're trying to work remotely. And are you good at being a teacher and doing your job at the same time and not being anywhere out in the public because you're isolated? So the isolationism for our children and our seniors is where some of it's the worst. So when I talk to the educators, they're all crystal clear. We're going to pay a price with our children, whether they're 4, 5, 6, they're in middle school, high school. They need to be with other children. But we can't do it safely, so we've got to do something and meet in the middle. But that price will be paid over the next decades. Anxiety, 43% of us are experiencing anxiety. I know I'm anxious. I mean, I don't want to get COVID. I mean, we all know someone that's had it. We probably all know someone that's died from it now. So those are the two big areas. Unemployment's been a disaster.
Certainly.
And we've helped over 4,000 people in my office. The state legislators couldn't figure it out. I just said, I'll take everybody. And then we talked to Tiffany Robinson, and we talked to her again, and I talked to her again. And after I had a couple of pep talks, we got really good response. And our own people assigned to us so I can fix those problems. So we've got to go to bat for one individual after another, and that's constituent services. Frankly, for me, the business background prepared me for that because in business, I live for my customer. And if I don't get that right, the customer lifetime value, CLV, I know that's going to drop like a rock because they'll be gone. So we really kill it on customer service, and same with constituent service. So we can see the unemployment. We can see all the pain, the sickness. PPE, it's a embarrassment what's happened to America not having the PPE. We put a bill in for supply chain. I understand supply chain. I buy wine and spirits in 40 countries, from Russia to New Zealand to Israel, and I ship it through the system to now it's 27 states. So we understand supply chain, so we put a bill in for that. We also understand made in America. You know what? If we have our medical supplies 95% of our N95 masks made in Wuhan, and Wuhan shuts down, that's not a good day.
We're in trouble.
So we need to have key supply chain in the medical area, like we do in defense, made in America, in multiple places, not all in one spot, because we have to be ready for emergencies. So the national stockpile, we have another bill in for that I wrote, to try and Americanize that. And if we pay $5 more for that mask, I don't really care. It's going to create jobs anyway. So that's all a good thing. So you see a lot of different things in that side.
Absolutely. You know, it's a great little initials there, customer lifetime value, that you're interested in, not only for business, but talk about it from your constituency as well. But let's talk a little bit more about your business. How did you grow your company from one store to more than 200 stores? What was your magic? What was your secret success? How did you do it?
I mean, there's no simple answers. We all know that. We're all in business. I mean, I frankly just love business. I mean, I love working. I'm a complete workaholic. I mean, for relaxation, I like to work. And
no golf, huh?
I don't play golf. I'm sorry. And I like that. And I used to tell my wife, she said, what are you doing email 11 o'clock at night? I says, I'm chilling out. And I'm serious. I just enjoy working. So I think that's probably the first reason that, if we outwork everybody else, probably going to do okay. And I learned that on the farm, because on the farm, we punch the time clock. And when I punched the clock at $1.80 an hour, and when Dad found out there was a farm exemption for agriculture, we went down to $1.30. I'm like, thanks, Dad. But, I mean, when you punch in a clock and you're working your egg plant 13 shifts a week, and you got to be there every shift, all of a sudden you get 80, 90, literally over 100 hours a week punching a clock. And when you do that punching a clock, all you do is work and eat and sleep and work and eat and sleep 7 days. That's all you do. So it's a tough upbringing, but it created a great work ethic that now, if you got to stick around till 10 o'clock or something, who cares? I don't care. And so that work ethic would be number one. The other issue would be really comfortable about failing. My dad, we went bankrupt because he had a drinking problem, ironically, and later on I got him into rehab, and my dad came back and worked for me for 30 years until he died of Alzheimer's. So I hired him back after my parents divorced, and I brought him with me. And, we kept him on the straight and narrow. But he was not afraid to fail. He would try things. And I think that's so important for an entrepreneur, to have great curiosity. That's a key win for a CEO, curiosity and willingness to say, let's try that idea. And even if you don't love it, you try it, and it takes you right here. And then all of a sudden, something else hits, and you move over here. Then you move over there, and you find the best idea. It takes some time. Ideas morph. And so that was key, to be comfortable with failure. And we actually try and rate our management team on failure. Because if you're not failing, Doug, you're not pushing the envelope enough. You're not pushing hard enough. So that's really key. So third thing would be great people. Find the smartest people you can find, the best athlete, and pay them, pay them, pay them. You got to pay for what you get. So we want to get the great people, and then be really comfortable. If I give Doug a job to do and Doug works for me, maybe Doug doesn't do it exactly like I did. I don't care. I got to give Doug room to grow. Doug room to come into his own. And once in a while you make a mistake, you got to pull the trigger. And I'm okay with that too. Because, we really don't fire people. They fire themselves because they don't step up and do what they could do. They don't live to their potential. So at that point, they really do fire themselves. So those would be three things I'd touch on.
Really interesting. How many people have read the book by Al Newhart, founder of USA Today? It's called Diary of an SOB. It's really an interesting book, and it touches on what the congressman's talking about. One of his tenets in the book was that if you're past the age of 38 and you haven't failed at something, you better hurry up and fail, because if you don't fail, you will not appreciate and know success. So it's through failure and the resiliency and being able to get back on your feet, once you're knocked down, and to get back on your feet again. It's so very important. Congressman, if you could.
But I want to touch on that a second. That resiliency, Doug hit a really key point. And that's what you learn about failure when I was 28 when the farm went bankrupt, and we lost our home. The house where you lived, it's all gone. And you go back to school, you take out loans, and you start over. You learn some resiliency. And then we had lots of other serious financial challenges over the time. Now, I didn't go live large. I put the money right back in the business. So that reinvestment in the business, let us keep 100% control. So that was key. But the resiliency was absolutely crucial.
Without a doubt. A lot of us in this room, I know personally, had some tough times growing up. You touched a little bit about, let's think about it. How devastating can that be when you lose your home? I don't care if you're 28 or you're 18 or you're 58. That's a devastating thing, going through bankruptcy. Talk a little bit more, if you can, about your family background and the bankruptcy, and how did that act as a catalyst for you, really to springboard you into your success?
I think on the farm, you took away a lot of great lessons. The number one lesson we talked about was hard work and willingness to try different things. So at Wharton, I was a broker of eggs, and that's where I morphed from when I left the farm. I became a telephone guy. So when I was in Vance Hall, I was on the phone selling eggs from Ohio to New York and Alabama to Boston, and trying to pick up a few pennies for every trail load of eggs I sold. So that's what helped cover the rest of the debts, and put food on the table. And, that was just totally phone work, 100%. Except for I had some chickens that I contracted with from a farmer that was used to sell to my dad. And when he saw Dad going bankrupt, he needed somewhere to sell the eggs. So I said, well, I'll buy the eggs and I'll broker them. He said, okay, you always were a straight guy. So I brokered his eggs. And that was 36,000 birds. But I did lots more and more and more. But that was sort of a little bit of a nucleus. But then bad things happened again to good people. The chickens in all of Pennsylvania caught the avian flu.
Oh, jeez.
Millions of birds were destroyed, and all of my birds were destroyed. So all of a sudden, that business went zero, and I was out of business again. So you get that resiliency that we talked about. So we saw an opportunity. I saw an opportunity in the beer business in Pennsylvania, and beer and soft drinks are a separate business from wine and spirits in Pennsylvania. So I opened up a small store in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, put my mother to work, and they had divorced, put my younger brother to work, my other younger brother to work. I commuted back on Thursday nights from Wharton. We had no class Friday, and I worked there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, came back on Sunday and did school. And, spent my time on the phone, how we're going to go. But when we started, we built the check stands out of 2x4s. We built the coolers out of plywood and insulation. We put them up ourselves. We didn't have a neon sign. We painted a yellow background and black letters just on the side of the building. And we had a $3 a foot rent. So we all know what $3 a foot means. Bad real estate. Really bad. And but that's how you got started. And we had one good idea: sell things cheap. So I've always been the cheap guy. I've always sold stuff the cheapest. So whether it's Kendall Jackson or Clico, or Smirnoff or Absolute, I'm going to have the best price. End of story. And if you have that, customers respect it, and then it'll come back and you can buy something else and work on a weighted average margin. So margins are all about averages, and we understand that. And then over time, we morphed into direct buying, and we now purchase wine and spirits from 40 countries. And so we make vodka in France and Minnesota and Russia and Poland. We make our own Kahluas, Amarettos, everything. We buy single malt scotches all over Scotland, etc., and wine everywhere from Adobe and others. And we bring those in direct, and that cuts out all the middlemen. So I've revolutionized the supply chain in America and the wine business. So we're the largest retailer now of wine and spirits in the country. that's privately owned. This year we'll do about $5 billion. And so we actually have over 9,000 plus employees now. So we have a big team, and it's become a big operation, but you got to change who you are as you go. I'm used to ringing a cash register. I did it all. I unloaded trucks. I'm good at driving a forklift, and I loved it. I mean, I really enjoyed that. And I like ringing a register and talking to customers. I like that. But if I don't keep growing and changing and get my people to grow and change, who you need at 100 million isn't the guy or gal you need at 500 or at 2 billion. So I got to keep changing my team out. And I can't be, I got to be paranoid. I got to be afraid every day of the young guy behind me is going to catch me. And if I'm not paranoid and afraid of him, I'm not going to be running hard and trying to run lean. And if I don't do that, someone's going to catch me. Unfortunately, the business I'm in now, nobody does that. They don't understand running lean, and they don't understand running hard.
It's interesting. 9,000 employees, and you got to be adaptable. You got to. It's a different person at 100 million or a billion or so forth. Just like the congressman said. Talk a little bit more about your management style. What did you do? How did you manage? All these people. You started with the one store. Obviously, you said you had to adapt. What was one or two things that you did that guided you on your way to make sure that you had the right people? You only hired the very best people, and you ran with them.
Well, I think on the hiring, again, go for smart. And, that's always the key. And then you can teach them the business. But if you get the best folks, and then again, as I said earlier, don't be afraid to say you made a mistake, and this isn't the right thing for the two of us. You can do somewhere else better. So we got to cut your losses, fail fast, and move on. But one thing I think is important is the word why. We got to teach people why we do things. If I just have a tell management style, that will not get me very far. I've got to trust Doug, and the way I can trust Doug is explain to Doug my vision and why we do this. And when he understands why, he buys in. And then when he buys in, he has ideas I never thought of. And diversity of your people is so key. So we really need diversity in this country, and that's why we need immigration reform. Because we're letting the smartest folks from other countries go back to their country. We educate them here. We got the most unbelievable country in the world, but we got to keep all that talent. 40% of our Fortune 500 are second gen or first gen. Google, eBay, Apple, second gen companies in most cases. So if we don't bring those folks here and keep them here, they're going to create jobs for all of us. So we need to fix that brain pool that unfortunately has been stagnated, right now. So teaching them why is key. Failing fast is key. The other one I talk about quickly is run to the problem. So when you have a problem, I'm excited because I can bring solutions. I can bring ideas. So I've got to teach my people that problems, they're like lettuce. They're going to get brown, and they're not going to go away. So I got to run to the problem, and we got to attack the problem and bring our intellect and our experience. And if we do that, we can solve it. But otherwise, it just lingers. Everybody sees it, and they see you as a leader ignored it. But my job the last decade has been, I'm a teacher. I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. That's what I do. And I'm an idea guy. I love ideas, and I've had a lot of failure on different ideas that don't work. That happens. No big deal.
Hurry up and fail so you can move on. Great point. I'm going to segue. Again, I'm going to ask the congressman a couple more questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience here. Obviously, Congressman, you've been extremely successful. I mean, just hats off to you for the tremendous company that you built. What changed? What made you pull that trigger or that switch that went off and said, hey, I'm going to segue, I'm going to run for Congress, and I'm going to be a congressman and maybe do some other things after I get there as well. What was it? What made you decide to do that?
Really all my life, I've felt like I wanted to change things in a big way for a lot of folks that needed a voice. that really didn't have a voice. And the issues I work on are about those kind of people. I'm on addiction, I'm on mental health, I'm on criminal justice, and I'm on medical research for those that have so many issues that are out there. So a lot of the things that I drive are folks that are voiceless. So all my life, even when I was in high school, I had an interest in getting in politics where I could really move the needle. But then this thing about a job got in the way.
Right.
And I think about having a wife and 4 kids. And, I love business. So, my original dream was I'd take that farm, I'd build into a big agribusiness, and then once I had something up and running and then taking care of my family, I could go forth and do something different and run for office somewhere. But that got put on hold for decades as you built your business. And then I waited for an opportunity. When the opportunity came up, I made the decision to pull the trigger. It was a life-changing decision. My 60th birthday, I resigned as CEO, been a CEO all my life, and said, hey, I'm going to run for Congress. I'm going to make somebody else the CEO of this company, and I'm going to try and move the needle and help cross the board on things that I really care about that have affected me in my life. And all those areas, I didn't get into them by accident. I got into those areas because of personal experience. And the personal experiences brought me into criminal justice, into addiction, into mental health, mental illness. And so those are reasons why I care so much about those. So I made that call, pulled the trigger, and hired a CEO and said, I'm going to run for Congress. I lost the first time, and I came back 2 years later. I ran and I won. And, I think I figured this one out a little bit. I understand it better than I did before, and it's a job that you can get involved in anything in the world you want. But you know what? You got to say no. You got to say no a lot. I'm just going to get involved and go deep and peel the onion where I can really get change. Because if I go too broadly and try and boil the ocean, I'll get nothing done. That's not what I get up for. So we're trying to get real things done. And I think we're moving the needle now, but it's hard sometimes.
And you've been in Congress now for over a year, 2 years. Congress has an approval rating of less than 10%. Talk a bit, what's your reaction? What have you learned? Talk about that if you could.
Well, I think you go to Congress sometimes, and the old joke is you walk around the hall and you say, how the hell did I get here? And you look at it and you say, wow, this place is unbelievable. Then after a while, you know everybody, you're like, how'd they get here? But I'm serious, there's a lot, and that's a little bit hard, but it's a little bit tough. But you know what? Business has so much that they can teach folks in government. There's not a lot in government that I've learned about business. I learned they can teach us. Yeah. It's not a lot. And teamwork is the key, but I did that as a business guy all my life. So I'm very, very crazy bipartisan. The stuff I work on, I put together a group, a freshman working group. I got 65 congressmen and women on it, 32 states, totally bipartisan on mental health and addiction. And we've got over 50 bills now. Every bill is bipartisan. Everyone. And we're moving those bills through. We have a state opioid response grant. It'll be $9 billion over 6 years. Just last week, we passed a bill on family support services, millions of dollars to help the families around the person that's suffering from addiction. And that's, again, bipartisan, passed unanimously. I've got it Senate sponsors, bipartisan in the Senate. So my focus is Senate Republicans. If I focus on Senate Republicans, I can pass in the House, because I'm a Democrat, but I need to get the Senate Republicans with me. So I got to find folks like Bob Portman, Shelley Moore Capito, folks like that are Senate Republicans that believe and care about what I care about. And that's doable. But you got to go over there and meet them on the turf. You got to be present, and you got to put in the time to share your experiences, share your concern, your passion, and we can make things happen. But we got to bring it all back to the middle. The more we focus on the edges, the more we focus on that in either party, the more we lose as a country. We got to get in the center where most all of us live and most all common sense lives. And then we can work as a team.
I'm going to ask you one more question, then I'll open it up to the audience. You definitely have some passion, Congressman. I can see how you can get things done. Talk a little bit about the dichotomy between government, you know. How is private sector different from the public sector? What can the public sector learn from the private sector? And is there any meeting of the minds there? I mean, you've been on both sides of the fence. You're working with the other side, the other part of the aisle to get things done. What's the answer?
Well, I think one answer is we do need more business people in Congress. And, you know, whatever your thoughts are on the guy in the White House, you know, I think he's an idiot, but that's me. And that's just where I'm at. I know a lot of folks in the development business that dealt with that gentleman. Everyone said the same thing. I would never deal with him twice. Every single person. And I know developers all over the United States. And I don't ask anybody or care what their party is. You go for people that are honest, you go for compassion, you go for civility, and you go for competence. And if we use those as sort of guideposts, we'll make the right connections. But I have found a lot of great Republicans that I'm able to work with on my issues. But I have to take the time to get to know them. And when we get to know each other, they're my biggest promoters. I mean, I could be on the right side of the aisle there, and they'll be telling somebody else, you got to work with Trone. Listen to what Trone's talking about. He's a guy that's going to tell you like it is, and we're going to try and move the damn needle. And that, I think, is what we need in Congress, is people that work as a team like we work in business, you know, as a team. But that's the biggest thing that's missing. All everyone's too focused on is raising money. There's a congressman kept track of it, Steve Israel, for like almost 15 years, how much of his time he spent doing everything he did. 46% of his time was raising money.
Wow.
Think about that a minute. It's unbelievable. So the money is a real problem. It's a real issue. When you're out raising that much money, you know, I don't take PAC money, I don't take lobbyist money. I absolutely raise money, but I largely self-finance. Frankly, I'd rather work on policy than make too many phone calls. But you got to do what you got to do. So teamwork is what's missing.
Teamwork is the key. Who's got a question out there in the audience? Steve.
What do you think about term limits? I love term limits. I think they're a great idea. You should come into government, you should serve, and get the hell out and go do something else. All in.
Remember our founding fathers, you know, there was never a full-time job. You know, you volunteered for like 3-4 months. You know, it was never to be in office for 1,000 years. The other Steve.
Share with us a little bit. Thank you, by the way, for your story. It's outstanding. It means a lot to us. So it's me. Share with me, you were raised and born poor. And what you're telling us, you struggled financially. Now you have a lot of money. Here's my question. When did you know you had, tell us a story about when you had a lot of money. When it first hit you, you go, wow, I could buy a Rolex instead of a Timex, you know? Share us maybe just a story.
Can you repeat the question for the audience, Congressman?
He's talking about when you had a realization that you became successful and you could work to give back. You know, I've always had an abundance of confidence that I was going to win. And I just knew that I'm okay smart, and I know I'm going to outwork everybody, and I'm good at seeing the angles about any problem. I'm good at seeing solutions. I don't know, I see that, and I'm good at that area. So I've always felt comfortable, you know, that I was going to be successful, and I've also never just wasted money. You know, I've owned in my life one new car. It's the one I drove today. Before that, I had pickup trucks. I had 4 pickup trucks. They were used. And then I finally got a new pickup truck, a Ford 250. And then I got a new car about, I guess, 7-8 years ago. It's the first car I ever built. And I was buying a car for my daughter. And the guy looked at me and says, "You drove here in that truck?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you should buy a car." I looked at him just because I was hanging out with my daughter, so I'll look at a car. So I bought a car. But so, on the spot. But I think you realize, you know, over time, maybe you're at, I don't know, maybe you're at 100 million, maybe you're at $1 billion. We hit $1 billion. That was kind of a big number. and you really don't think about it. We've doubled every 5 years for 30 years. So you're always doubling every 5. So, you know, kind of you see the runway. You can see the white space in America. You know, I understand, you know, real estate in the country. And but I think when you sort of realize you've made it, you got to start giving back. So, you know, we've given back probably the last 6 years over $100 million. So between me, my brother, the foundations, the company, I mean, we're writing checks for everything under the sun. And I think that's really important. I'm trying to teach my kids how to take that over so they can make the decision. We just did a grant to Hopkins last week, you know, 7 figures. But I didn't want to make the call. Yeah, I wanted them to talk to the doctors, them to understand the problem they're trying to solve, them to get what was happening, and them to make the decision what they would do over what period of time. But I got to give that on to them because they're not born with the struggles that I was born with, and many of us in this room that are first-time entrepreneurs, and that's their loss. I mean, that is a big loss for them, you know, that they didn't go through some of the bullshit that and just the mindless work that, you know, I've done. You know, mindless work, 13 tons of chicken manure every day. I've driven more manure wagons than you could ever think about. I'm not kidding you. It's just it's farming's tough, and but at the end of the day, they missed out on that opportunity. So I've got to help try and let them live it through me a little bit and understand this is no. I'm not going to have second generation dysfunctionality. You know, I can't let that happen, and I owe it to them to help them. So it's when you realize you can really make a difference, and that's why I left business, because I can give away your money, and I can give it away in a thoughtful way that I think you would approve of it, that you would say, yeah, those people need help, and I'm glad that my tax money is going to that, not to something else that's not that necessary. And that's why I ran for Congress, because I mean, we have in this HEROES bill, we've got $8.5 billion for mental health and addiction. $8.5 billion. That's not there by accident. Those people really need it, and myself and others that I'm working with that they're on my team, we advocated for it. And if we can get that through, we can do a world of good for those folks. A world of good.
Without a doubt. You know, Ted Turner talked about that same concept, you know, with the second generation, that, you know, how can I not give my kids too much? That's what he quoted. You got to be careful with that, because that's part of the struggle, that, you know, you raising up from your bootstraps, you know, going bankrupt, picking yourself back up. When you give your kids everything, they really don't know what it is to be on the other side. Zach, you're going to have that talk with your father tonight about this. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time. Thanks, Mark, for letting me be a guest. What's been your biggest failure as a congressman, and what have you learned from it?
Can you repeat that for the tape?
What's your biggest failure as a congressman? What have you learned from it? I would say a simple mistake early on was not having every interview you do tape recorded, because otherwise someone says you said something you didn't say. And I tape record everything now, because then we got the facts. Because this is a dirty, filthy business that people say things about you that are just, I mean, your kids are like, they're just insanely mad when people say things about you that are so ridiculously untrue and just vicious. It's unbelievable. I mean, I had cancer when I ran for my first election. So I got hit with cancer. Spent a lot of time at Hopkins, and I'm good right now, knock on wood. But my opponent, she ran pictures of me with all my hair out, and just vicious pictures. And, you know, is that right? I don't think so. So you learn that you got to have to cover yourself at some level, because this, you know, in business, it's all about merit and decency. And that's not what this business is about, unfortunately. And that's a sad indictment on it.
Other questions? Stand up, Steve.
Oh yeah, every time. Yeah, every time. We always when you're doing an interview, any interview you do, you got to record it. You're talking to the press, the Washington Post, you got to record it. And we always say, you guys should record it too. I like to have them record it also, so then they have better notes. Otherwise, they're writing stuff down, and they can't remember what they wrote. So I always will say, oh, if you want to record this, that's good. They'll say, oh, yeah, you don't mind? I said, yeah, that'd be great. Now, my guy's recording it too. But they gotta record it, man.
No questions when that happens. Anybody else? Vasilios.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your great story. I truly appreciate it. But to follow up on that, so you record everything. I think that's awesome. When CNN finally turns against you and you're being too bipartisan, do you really think those recordings are going to have enough clout to counteract the whole damn big channel that's going crazy, doing whatever? Or how will you use those recordings to set them straight?
Yeah, what we're talking about is recording media interviews. So media interviews you've got to record. But I think that unfortunately, the media, and this really started almost 20 years ago, with the whole FCC and how they talk about what's opinion versus what's news. I mean, a lot of us grew up with Cronkite and Huntley Brinkley, and that was the news. But now it's not news. Now it's all opinion. So, I mean, I'm a Democrat. I make no bones about it. My mom and dad were Democrats, and generally you're often what your parents were. And I believe in the values of helping people out, but I also believe in business. I'm pro-business all the way. I mean, I'm endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce. It's only 23 Democrats they endorsed. I'm endorsed by the Farmers Bureau. And, and they don't endorse many Democrats. But I'm for jobs. And if we have good jobs, you'll get good health care. And things like Medicare for all is a bad idea. And just that's it. And you just got to be not afraid to say it. And I'm not going to vote for that. But I'm afraid the news is so much distorted. And CNN sometimes absolutely pushes too far to the left. And I don't like some of the things that, Don Lemon might say or his attitude. And, I just don't feel good about that. But at the same time, I'm watching Fox. And I know about some things. They're just telling lies. They're just telling a lie after a lie after a lie. And because I know the facts on a lot of this stuff, and they don't really care. So I try and watch both because I want to watch them both. So I might watch a little more Fox than CNN, and I don't believe in Fox, but you know what? I want to hear both sides.
That's right.
I think if you don't understand what everybody else is hearing, you're not going to be able to understand it and come up with ideas. And so I don't think things I care about. This is a good one. There's more things that we have in common than we have in difference. So let's focus on what we have in common. And we all want everyone to do better, right? We want to celebrate the unbelievable country we have here. We want to help those folks with mental health and addiction. We want to spend money on medical research because the ROI is 8 to 1. We all want that. We all don't want waste in government and things like that make no return. So there's a lot more we have in common, and we got to focus on those things.
Well stated. Anybody else? We got to get the congressman out of here before his 2 o'clock call. Tim.
I'll take it while I'm driving.
Sorry, thank you for your time and thank you for coming here. I want to let everyone else go first because my question is totally off topic. I'm third generation military, and I see the benefits of joining the military. My son, however, is hearing impaired. He went deaf a couple years ago, so now he wears cochlear implants. He can hear well until he takes the cochlears off. Is there a possibility that somehow we can allow certain individuals with certain disabilities to serve in the military? Because I feel, and I'm very realistic, that he can serve certain roles. I don't expect him to be a combat role, but I was an IT tech. And I can see individuals such as him with hearing impairment being able to serve in non-combat roles, especially in the technical, jetmax. Trust me, my hearing's all gone from serving on the flight line. You get people like that in there, you don't pay disability like you pay me. Do you think that there's a way that we could get a bill passed to allow certain individuals, such as my son, to be able to serve in the military?
Yeah, and I'm not in the military sphere as far as Armed Service Committee in that area. you know, you have an unbelievable congressman here, Dutch Rippersberger, who's a close friend of mine and been a real mentor on Congress. And, you know, you got a great senator here from Baltimore, Ben Cardin. So those are two guys that I've spent a lot of time with getting to know, and they've really helped take me under their wing to teach me about politics. I like finding somebody that's smarter than me in those areas and go to them and learn from them. So Dutch has a lot more military, national security stuff, but the answer to your question is yes all the way. I mean, I'm very much a supporter of our military. We need a strong military. My dad, as you said, was served in World War II, spent 17 years in the reserves, became a major when he retired, you know, and, you know, a lot of folks that have disabilities, we should figure out ways to help them to serve. And an example would be Dan Crenshaw. Anybody know who Dan Crenshaw is? So Dan's a Navy SEAL, SEAL Team 3, and I went to Israel with Dan. We spent a week in Israel together. He's a hardcore Republican, and he and I became very good buddies. And I really like Dan Crenshaw, and he's just a great guy. And he got just hammered on IED. His interpreter stepped on the IED right in front of Dan, and Dan, you know, he lost an eye. You know, it's blue now, the one he lost. He's got a seal emblem imprinted on his eye. So when you're looking at it from like 1 inch away, it's pretty scary. And his other eye, he's got, you know, really thick glasses and he can see now. But Dan had debilitating wounds and, you know, terrible, terrible wounds. And he's an awesome American. And he couldn't continue to serve in the military. He wanted to stay in the military, continue to serve. And here's a guy that's a SEAL and, you know, hurt, you know, unbelievably in the line of duty, and they couldn't figure out how to accommodate him. So to your point, I think the military is too intransigent, you know, not flexible enough to figure out how wonderful, great Americans like your son or Dan that have a disability couldn't continue to serve. But when they wouldn't let a guy like Dan keep serving, you know, after his, you know, and work around his stuff, he's been out to my house for dinner. He's on my bills. I mean, but, you know, he and I disagree on. He'll be voting for Trump, and I'm voting for Biden. But you know what? We both care about mental health. We both care about addiction. We both care about business succeeding, so jobs are created. So we got a lot in common, and that's what I focus on.
Congressman, you're an inspiration, and I think you have a tremendous story. What's the future? Final question. What's the future beyond Congress for you? You'd be a tremendous governor.
Yeah, well, we don't know what we're going to do yet, honestly. That's the God's honest truth. I mean, my mission is to win this next election. I think I'll win it pretty handily. I won by 21 points last time. I'll probably win by more this time. But I want to make sure I do my job and do it as good as I can do it. And, you know, take care of my constituent service is second to none, because I'm a crazy man on constituent services, because I put in metrics, and we follow my metrics. And that's key on getting back to customers and taking care of their problems. And all those metrics, you know, you live by that. But at the end of the day, you know, we're going to think about it after this election. You know, I have a couple of options. You know, we can look at running for governor, and, you know, there's a lot I think I could do there. It's a wonderful state. There'd be someone that's very, very bipartisan, that's about business and getting stuff done. But at the same time, it's one state. And the other issue is, do I want to stay in Congress if I can accrue more clout, so to speak, by helping other congressmen and women, which I've been doing all over the country. So I've tried to build my tentacles throughout America with all the frontliners, all the red to blues, all the Senate races, and of course Biden. So I've been using my success to help everybody else as much as I can, which gives me an edge to getting things I care about. So if I can get more done in Congress over time, I'll look at staying in Congress. And frankly, where would I be happier? Going back and being a CEO. But you know what? I did that. It's a better job than Congress. But at the end of the day, this is what I can show my kids, that, you know, I didn't need to do this. I didn't need to do this every day. You know, I could have done anything. But I decided this is what I want to do because I can make a difference. And I'm here for the right reasons. I think you can see that. And people in Congress see that too. And both sides of the aisle see that. And as that gets recognized, you can build a bigger center, bigger folks in the middle, and then get more stuff done where we work together.
Congressman David Trone, an inspiration. Thank you, sir, for being here. Thank you all for coming.